welcome everyone. I think we'll get started for this special council meeting on the 23rd of November 2020. It's 7:02, so I'd firstly like to acknowledge this land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Welcome everyone. We have everyone here. There are no apologies. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence? Councillor Fraser.
I did have leave of absence, but I'd like to cancel it as I can't leave. There's border restrictions, so I can't go.
Okay, thank you for that update, Councillor Fraser. COVID has meant change of plans quite regularly. Any other motions to grant leave of absence? There none. There are no non-attendants. Now, public open forum, I have a request from the Honourable Tony Piccolo, MP, Member for Light. Welcome, Tony. Do you wish to speak to Council at all? Okay, thank you. Any other members of the community gallery wish to speak to Council at all? No? Okay, no problem. So, elected members, are there any declarations of interest on any matter coming up for Councillor Little?
5.4.
5.4?
It's received, then I'll be staying in the chamber.
If you can bring that up when we get to that matter, Councillor Little,
Yep.
that'd be lovely. Thank you for declaring that. I've got 5.1 and 5.2. I'll be leaving the room for both those matters, and I'll stay out of the room for both those matters. Councillor Davies, you happy to take the chair? Thank you very much. Are there any other items? Councillor Tooley?
Yep. I declare a perceived conflict of interest in 5.1, 5.2, 7.1 and 7.2, and I'll be staying in the meeting.
So you're declaring perceived in both those matters, 7.1, 7.2?
Yep, correct.
I'll deal with them when we get to those matters. Okay, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could move the first item of business to 5.5. We've got the market people here at the moment. The order of officer reports.
5.5. Do you want to move a motion that we move 5.5 forward?
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Samble. Got that, Chris? That we move 5.5 forward. We'll deal with that first. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. Thank you. So we will deal with 5.5 first. Aussie Farm Fresh Market. Now this is on page 13. You can go to your agenda. It's on page 13. Okay. You happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes? Do you wish to speak at all?
Just briefly, I just think this makes a lot of sense. It does bring people into the town, and it's good for Christmas in the town. So quite happy to move.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Shanks, do you wish to speak at all? Any other discussion? Councillor Tooley? Did you put your hand up, Councillor Tooley? Okay.
What page are we on now?
We're on page 13,
Which is item
5.5.
5.5. Okay. Start with a couple of questions. Will the market be COVID compliant?
Well, the market would be COVID compliant now, so it would be then. Is that a yes, gentlemen? Yes, that's a yes.
It's a reasonable question to ask, Mayor, because we've had a changing, as you know, we've just come out of a total lockdown, so we're moving into a different phase. So I thought it was a reasonable question to ask. Second question, if the market is approved, can the market be supplemented with additional Christmas-focused stalls, possibly even with live Christmas music, by local artists, bands, choirs, etc.?
So just on the Mr. Barrett, is it Mr. Barrett? Mr. Viney that covers off on lease, just licenses. So the question was, can the existing licence, which this would operate under just the variation in time and date, or day and time, does the licence allow for that type of activity that Councillor Tooley outlined?
So through the chair, that's Mr. Horwood's area, but I don't believe so. The market takes up the entire car park. However, in discussion with the Frangos family, through my role overseeing the Visitor Information Centre, they were intending to expand onto Pioneer Park, and then they would take out a permit for use of Pioneer Park. That would be handled through our Visitor Information Centre. So in the event that they wanted to expand the operations beyond the car park, that's the process that they'd undertake.
If you could come forward, Tony, and you might be able to provide some clarifying information. Thank you. Member for Light, Tony Piccolo. Just need to turn it on, Tony. I think there's a button, green. It just goes green if you hold on to it.
Can you hear me now? Yep. Thank you, Your Worship. There'll be no additional activities because any additional activities will not be COVID compliant. So their licence or their COVID plan is for food only. And if they want to do anything else, they actually would not be COVID compliant, and I'm aware of that because they came to me, went to the police, and the police said no. So they'd be restricted to the food only to be allowed to stay open.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Tooley, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, and I thank our local member for that clarification, because I think you could see where my thinking was going, was that if we are going to approve this market to that date, given all the lack of Christmassy things we've had, I just thought it would have been a wonderful opportunity. My next question was going to be, could we extend the length of the market for that day? And I just saw an opportunity to lengthen the market, add a few Christmas stores, add a bit of music, and create, a proper Christmas market. But that has been answered. It's possible, which is sad. But I certainly support what they're saying as they're shifting from the day that they were going to have it to an earlier day. I think that makes sense. So it certainly has my support.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Hughes, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. It is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Tony. Okay, so now we move back to our agenda. We've dealt with 5.5. I wish to declare a material conflict on the subject of both complaints that have been laid that are unsubstantiated, 5.1, 5.2. I will be leaving the room. That's how I plan to deal with the matter. And I think I'll hand over the reins to Councillor Davies. Thank you.
All right, so 5.1, Code of Conduct Complaint, April 2020, final report. Do we have a mover for this? Councillor Hughes and a seconder. Councillor Goldstone, do you wish to speak, Councillor Hughes?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Councillor Goldstein? No. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Tully?
First of all, question, Chair. I've never seen the costing elevated to be listed in the item. It's normally viewed in the financial statement at the back of every motion. This is the first time I've seen the actual amount elevated. That's my first question. Why is this a break from the norm? Why is the amount being put so prominently into the motion?
Through the chair, over the course of time, there have been lots of conversations and discussions about the costs of complaints and processing of complaints and lawyers being engaged and so forth. When I was reviewing the report prepared by the administration, I felt it was appropriate that the cost be elevated for acknowledgement in the body of the recommendation.
You have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you for that, CEO. Will that now be the normal practice then with all similar investigations, motions, reviews, work costs, legal costs? Will those figures be now included in the report motion?
Well, I think relative to matters that are of complaints, the processing of such complaints, and given the commentary again in the chamber about concerns of such costs, then if I do hear through the course of this discussion that that's an element that the elected members look forward to seeing more consistently, then I'm happy for that to be part of the recommendations in future such reports. I acknowledge through correspondence that Councillor Tooley sent through today that there is a slight inconsistency with another report today on an investigation of sorts that doesn't include the cost of that within the body of the recommendation, and I apologise for that inconsistency. That should have been detailed equally as we have in this item. So from that perspective, I do apologise. It wasn't a deliberate inconsistency, but I acknowledge that there has been an inconsistency. But I would appreciate any feedback from members in respect to whether or not that's of value and whether we would then continue to reference that information as part of the recommendations moving forward.
Councillor Tully?
Yes, I'd just like to speak now. Thank you, and thank you, CEO Annette, for your honesty. I appreciate that. As this is about a complaint that I submitted, I'd just like to say the following. In a number of emails prior to submitting my complaint, my formal complaint, I did try to resolve the complaint and to resolve my differences through dialogue with the Mayor, but it was not successful. There was no opportunity to meet. I did try. On April the 8th, with no other option, I followed the correct process, I followed code and the grievance procedure and the complaints handling process, and I submitted my complaint to the CEO. I do conclude, and I hope you notice this on pages 25 and 28, I conclude my submission with this statement. If my complaint cannot be resolved through appropriate grievance procedures and mediation, then I request that my complaint be forwarded to either the OPI or the Ombudsman for resolution and at no cost to council. I do not want my complaint handled by some blood-sucking lawyer so they can offer an opinion and charge council, as it turned out, $5,000. I need to say that absolutely no attempts were made at a grievance procedure, no attempts were made at a mediation, despite those options being available in our own council's complaints handling procedure. I was never offered the opportunity to meet with the Mayor, and the matters were sent by the CEO Nat to the lawyers, not by me. I did not choose to send them to the lawyers, CEO Nat did. The disappointing thing is that at the end of $5,000, there is no healing. There is no resolution, there is no improved relationship. There is simply a finding that in the view of the lawyer, there is no case to answer. accordingly, Mayor Redmond, if you look at the review, did breach the regulations, as Waterman says. They say that it actually was a breach, but they're not holding the mayor to account for it. Clearly, the mayor breached Part 2.6 of the code, which deals with rules and regulations. But the lawyers chose not to investigate that, despite me reminding them of that in my feedback on their preliminary report. So I guess the takeaways I would say from this are, we've wasted $5,000 when we could have tried mediation. If you're powerful enough, if you were the mayor, then you can debate formal motions, even though, as the lawyers say, it was a legitimate ruling. It was a legitimate motion by Councillor Shanks, and we should not have debated it. So if you're powerful enough, you can. And I guess if you're powerful enough, you can also make statements to the members that says, if you don't vote the way I want you to, you're being disloyal to me. I guess that's a great takeaway, because it means that the report has essentially validated those two positions, which is very disappointing, because I would have thought, when I look at the rules, the regulations, the code, we're all meant to be consistent, we're all meant to be treated fairly, we're all meant to be equal in power, but clearly that's not the case. And I would just say that if you think that the Waterman's report or the Ombudsman's report totally vindicates or exonerates the mayor, then I'd suggest you have not read the full detail. Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Kosh.
Thank you. Look, I've read the report. It's just more trivial complaints costing us a lot of money. People don't go into mediation with council too because they don't feel safe. That's the reality. People do not feel safe.
I got a point of order. All right. What's the point of order?
It says in the regulations that I can interrupt a member when he is not speaking the truth. What he has just said is defamatory. He has just said that people do not feel safe meeting with me. There is no history of people meeting with me. Could I just finish? That meeting was in 2016 when Councillor Kosh had his security dog with him and the mayor was there, and the mayor will validate that we resolved the issue. She asked if I would come in and discuss a matter. There was no complaint, but would I discuss a matter? I said yes. We resolved the matter, and then the meeting deteriorated into Councillor Kosh attacking me by saying to me, oh, because you've got an education, because you're a principal, you think you're better than the rest of us. At that point,
so we're getting into stories here rather
if
than
I could just finish
the
my sentence.
point of order.
If I could just finish my sentence. At that point, I walked out of that meeting. That is.
Councillor Little.
A formal motion, that we put the motion next to it.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Sample, all in favour? All against? All right, we'll.
You got a minute.
Councillor Sample seconded that. Sure.
Supposed to leave it loose.
Okay. So According to the staff, you have to either stay in the room or not be in the room. If you're in the room, you have to vote. You have to sit down and vote. All right, doesn't really matter. Let's hold the vote. All in favour? All against? It is carried. And so now it moves to the motion itself. All in favour? All against? It is carried. Okay, now we're moving on to 5.2. Yeah, so 5.2, do we have a mover for 5.2? Can we scroll over to 5.2? This is the one from June. Councillor Hughes, and a seconder. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Fraser, do you wish to speak? Councillor Hughes? Councillor Fraser, do you wish to speak? Do we have any other discussion on this one? Councillor Tooley?
Thank you, Chair. As you'd all remember, I tried extensively to resolve this matter through email dialogue because I follow CEO Nat's protocols and I always include you all in my emails. Mayor Redmond maintained that my request for a motion on notice and a motion without notice was blocked by her, despite her accepting the most significant motion without notice from Councillor Fraser at item 11.8 on the 28th of April. So despite that, she blocked my motion on notice that we carry out the investigation. I followed correct meeting procedure to have my motion listed, but Mayor Redmond blocked my attempts. Mayor Redmond claimed that she could apply the guiding principles. The problem with the guiding principles is that they're very, very subjective. And as this statement says, a mayor has a lot of discretion in that. As the last resort, I did two things. We as the members, we called a special council meeting in order to deal with the issue. And although extensive legal opinion was thrown at us and every trick in the book was thrown at us, we persisted and we were successful in having that. I then lodged a formal complaint to try to achieve justice. Once again, no attempt at dialogue, no attempt at mediation, no attempt at grievance procedures, but straight off to the lawyers. Again, the CEO's choice, not mine. Even though our procedures say that mediation is a recommended avenue, and also the grievance procedure of the Town of Gawler organisation, it says exactly that. First and foremost, try to resolve the mediation for the benefit of the organisation. So these are the takeaways. The Mayor does have the power to subjectively apply the rules and to subjectively interpret them and the meeting procedures. If Mayor Redmond chooses to say that your motion on notice contravenes the general principles, then you've lost all hope. If Mayor Redmond chooses to say, as she did in the case of Councillor Fraser, even though it was totally different to the officer's recommendation, I will accept that motion without notice. She has the discretion to do it. And you and I are powerless. It's down to the choice of the Mayor. If you think that the report and the ruling, again, of the LGA panel or of the Ombudsman totally exonerates the Mayor, then I would suggest again, you haven't read them, and you should read page 38 and 39 of 58, where it talks very clearly about that. Again, I just find it very disappointing that you try to resolve these matters through dialogue. you are willing, as you know yourself, Councillor Davies, you have asked me on one occasion, are you willing to mediate? I said yes, and the other party said no. I'm willing to do that. And there has only ever been one meeting in 2016 that was ever called. Councillor Tooley, would you meet with a member? I said yes. The meeting resolved the issue, but it then sadly deteriorated and I walked out of that meeting. To say that people do not feel safe with me is just the biggest lie and exaggeration you could hear, because there's never been any complaints about me. There's not one other person in this room other than Councillor Koch in 2016. No one has ever met with me. Mayor Redmond has never met with me, other than when I initiated that when Councillor Kevin Fisher was chair of the IES. I called a meeting and the CEO came to it and the mayor came to it, Councillor Fisher came to it, and we had a really good option, and that actually cleared the air. That was very, very successful. And that led to me apologising on my own volition. There was never a formal complaint put in. I apologised to Councillor Fisher, and I then apologised unreservedly to the whole chamber at the next meeting. That was generated by me. And Kevin Fisher and I, although we had a moment there which was rather intense, we shook hands, we went for coffee for 2 hours, we completely resolved it. We have an extremely good relationship ever since. That is the power of mediation, and there was no cost involved. It's in our own policy, and yet we don't do it. And later on tonight, we're going to look at a very, very expensive piece of research, which actually says in the very expensive summary that mediation, I know people are watching mediation is really important, and grievance procedures are really important. So I'm very disappointed it's come to this. It was never my intention. I tried to avoid this, but when you're left powerless with no other option, then it is correct procedure. It is correct and allowable procedure not to have a kangaroo court in a meeting to discuss your differences. That's not allowed, but you are allowed to use the code of conduct and the complaint handling procedure, and I've followed that to the letter.
All right, so that's time. Do we have any other discussion on this, Councillor Shanks?
Yeah, just a question. Very similar to the previous question that was asked. This was forwarded for legal advice. We have some financial implications there in the back where we've said it's only, what was it, $388, but how come we haven't costed up the legal advice or the letter that said this should be dismissed? And how come it's not sitting front and centre as a point one?
CEO.
Well, I actually did turn my mind to whether or not I needed to reference $388 in the recommendation. I decided I didn't need to because it's $388.
Do we have any other discussion? You want to ask another question, speak to it? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Tonight, I'm coming in here trying to bite my tongue. I'm really, really struggling with making sure I don't lose my cool. This is a joke. I can't put it any other way. I am doing my best here, but all of these avoidable situations that I would look to my leadership to get in front of, I'm not seeing that. I've said it again and again and again, and here we are. This agenda, the way that it sits, and the way that this is going to blow up inevitably tonight, given what we're all going through, is a joke. I have, again, no other way to put it. There's some swear words I like to use, but I'm not that way inclined. It's very, very disappointing to see these complaints get to this position, and I can see that these letters, these resolutions came through in August, in October. But instead, tonight, given what we have at the end of the agenda, we decide to collate all of this together. And the only reason I can come up with is to discredit an elected member that is highly critical. It's worrying, to say the least. So moving forward, this communication needs to get a lot better. What we're going down the path of is getting to the point of no return. Surely the writing is on the wall. The complaint that has been put forward by Councillor Tooley, the Mayor is exonerated. Well done. I don't know who he's playing at home, but I think it's, what, 2-2 now of exonerations? What have we gained? I'm happy to support this because on a technicality, we're happy with the Mayor acting appropriately against the guidelines and regulations. I'm happy to accept that. I'm not happy to accept the way these items keep on getting dealt with. I expect better. Our community expects better.
Councillor Kosh.
What we're discussing tonight is not a joke in any form at all. What's happening in this council is very, very serious and affects the whole community. If I was a businessman, I'd be very worried about what I hear from councillors, certain councillors. What we see in front of us here is a trivial matter that really people should just get over. When I have to put up with stuff each meeting and emails, which I just go, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to, turn it into a big drama. But some people do want to turn everything into a big drama and showcase something or other. I don't know what for. But what it is doing, it actually shows a string of behaviour, not an isolated behaviour. Because when you have one complaint, it comes out, oh, that's a storm in a teacup. They could just talk and get over it with, people just say that, that's fine, but it's not. Here we have a number of items here which basically are repeating over and over and over again. It's not isolated, it's a pattern, an absolute pattern. And the community needs to be aware of that. It's a real pattern. And somebody's not doing something right. And yes, there's mediation in our policy, but you have to have two people, and it has to be that there's going to be an outcome, and you come there in goodwill. I would not go into mediation because I don't think there's goodwill on that side. That's it. I would not physically feel safe as well because somebody gets very aggressive. So that's where I am. That's where I am. And I think the community needs to know that. It's just one person over and over and over again. So I'm happy to vote for it. I think the Mayor's been exonerated, but I think the spotlight, the community is seeing exactly what's happening here, and it's not all of us. The spotlight's in one spot. So I'm happy to vote for this. Thank you.
Councillor Vallonger.
Or get out.
Do we have any? So do we have any other speakers? Otherwise, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? It's unanimously carried. So can someone bring the mayor back in? So we're moving on to the next topic. The mayor is coming back in.
Okay, so 5.3. You happy to move that way? Councillor Samble, do you wish to speak at all? Do you want to put your mic on, Brian? There you go.
Only to ask of members to support this motion. It's very important that we're involved with Regional Development Australia, especially when after what we've been through here, and to obtain grants for future projects in our community. They've certainly been very supportive of the town of Gawler in the past, and with the information that's been given to us, it's very straightforward, and I ask members to support it. Thank you.
You happy to second Councillor Hughes? Do you wish to speak at all? So I've just got a question to the CEO. The changes to the Constitution in effect mean that council doesn't have a say who sits on the board, but they can be consulted. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Tooley?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My question, I think, is along the same line. I was looking at the change at item 7.3.5, and that may be what you're referring to. And my question was, because I couldn't see the previous, was how does this change at item 7.3.5 change the current powers and protections related to appointments?
Well, that's what I asked, which I think is the same question, is, effectively the answer is that we have no say. We can be consulted, but the board decides who sits on the RDA boards. We don't decide, but it does include, as you would recognise, that we can get them consulted, but they don't have to necessarily pay any attention to that feedback.
Is that different to, like in the past, we did have a say, but now we're just consulted?
That's correct.
In your view, Mayor, is that a good thing for us as a council?
In my personal view, I think council should have a say. We're paying money. We pay, I think, around about 30,000 every year or thereabouts. And in my personal view, I think that, given that we're paying and we're financial partners, absolutely we should have a say. Currently, we have the CEOs, which seems appropriate. Other RDA boards have mayors. I know the Limestone Coast has their mayors on there. So I think that local government representation is critical, but it is in fact these changes, and I do have concerns, absolutely, but it is a matter for council to decide, but I just wanted to make that really clear.
If I could speak, and thank you for answering that, and I think I really appreciate what you said, Mayor, because I take some validation in that we could have very easily just stopped and said on the surface of it we'll vote, but through a few probing questions, I think we've now surfaced the problem. And I don't know what, for whatever reason, but it would have been nice perhaps to have that, implication circulated. I don't know how that could have happened, whether you could have put out a memo or something, but I totally agree with you, and that was the point of my question. So your answer is very important to me, and for that reason I cannot vote for it, because I totally agree with you. We spent that 30,000. I totally agree with you about we should, as a contributing body and member, we should have a say, not leave it to the power of the board to decide, but only consult. And, you know, they may be very good at consulting. You know, that they may be very good, but it opens the door. If the wrong board or the wrong people on the board, you just don't know down the track. So we lose our safeguard, and really we're relying on hope. Whereas if we kept it the way it was, we guarantee that we can have a say. So I thank you for illuminating that, and they're my reasons why I can't support that change.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Sample, do you wish to close the vote?
I suppose one thing that was somebody raised then, our representative on that panel is the CEO. One of the things I've noticed coming back on the council is a few of the meetings that I've been to when members, like elected members, are members of that committee and they have been away, there's no gap filled there. And I'm a great one in believing that, say for instance, the CEO wouldn't be able to attend. Who would attend to those board meetings? I do think that in the future, if we're going to spend money on being part of these committees, it's very important that a representative from our council is representing our council. And like I say, this goes also around to other committees that I've attended. In some places, sometimes they haven't been able to get a quorum because elected members haven't been there. So to be a proxy, it doesn't mean, like for instance, Business Development Board, Councillor Kosh is a proxy, and one of us get there every time. It's important that the council is represented on those, and especially to where we're paying money into this. I do believe we should look at having a proxy in case the CEO cannot attend.
We can't. That's not what this says. Anyway, you're wrapping up the debate.
Yep, I've wrapped it up. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. All those against? All those in favour? Sorry, if we can do that again. It is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 5.4. Now, Councillor Little, you wish to declare a conflict, is that correct?
I'm going to receive conflict as I'm RSL President, but I'll be staying in the chamber.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. So we have officers. You happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes? Do you wish to speak?
I just think this is a really important project, and I think it's really good that it's finally happening. I really feel as though this should have happened many years ago, but it's good that it's being done properly with the RSL, police, ministers, and everyone involved. And thank the people behind the scenes that have made this happen. Different people in our community that have worked hard to get this project through and finalised on the 5th of December. So that's good.
Thank you. Happy to second, Councillor Sample. Do you wish to speak? Any? Thank you, Councillor Shanks.
I agree with Councillor Hughes with this one. I think there's a level of respect that needs to be continued to get offered as the time goes on. I think this probably is a little bit long overdue, but it does give the opportunity to bring the forefront of the discussion forward on respecting what we need to in this space. So I'm happy to support it, and I hope to show a strong united front to give a unanimous decision on this one.
Any other discussion? Councillor Tooley.
Yep, couldn't support this more strongly. It's fantastic. I live right next door to a historic cemetery, and was a time there where plaques were put in to honour those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, brass plaques. And I don't know if they've discovered this with the World War One, but we discovered in the cemetery that the people were born twice. Many of them were born on one plaque and then the other 2 years later. And we know that story. The Bavard men in those days lied. They were only 16. They wanted to go to war to serve their country. And they didn't bother to check because they needed people for the war. And so it's very interesting when you see the brass plaques and you see the original headstone and you'll see a difference in those dates. And that, I think, just tells an incredible story about patriotism and sacrifice. Yeah, stunning. And we just owe such a debt. So it's lovely that they're doing this. And I love the fact that I'm reading about an official ceremony that's going to happen to honour that work. So well done to everyone involved.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Hughes, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now moving on to 5.6. Town of Gawler operating hours 18. Happy to move that one, Councillor Hughes. Second to Councillor Vallelonga. Any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move on to motions on notice. Notice of motion, Councillor Tooley, Ombudsman final report. Councillor Tooley, you can present your motion.
Just before I do, Mayor, there's a real problem. This item should not be listed here. I have the format for special council meetings and it does not include motions on notice. So that's my first question. Why has this been listed here? Because it's not allowed.
Special council meetings are determined by the agenda that's put forward, and this was included in the agenda. Is that not correct, CEO?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So you can present your motion. Thank you.
I have, again, I wish people would consult their governance officer. I have here the email sent out by Kate Symes today, which is why
this is part of the reports that were put on the agenda.
It says the order of business for special council meeting is, and it lists them, and it says that you cannot have.
This is an agenda item. This is an
can't.
agenda item.
But there is no agenda item called motions on notice.
Well, this is an agenda item. If you looked at the request, if you don't wish to present it, we'll move on. But if you do wish to present it, you can present it now. Otherwise, we'll move on. It's up to you.
I move that it be deferred until the next ordinary council meeting.
You move that it be deferred to the next ordinary.
Adjourned/deferred to the next council meeting. To the next ordinary council meeting.
Is it a deferral motion that you're? Yeah, I'll take it that it's a deferral motion. Do I have a second? Councillor Vallelonga. All those in, I beg your pardon? That would be tomorrow night. Can we put that? We can. Or the agenda's already set for tomorrow night. So it's not valid. So it can be for December. So I would suggest for December. You happy with that? Yep. I would recommend that. So you're nodding your head in agreement. So I'll take it that to the December 2020 ordinary council meeting. And we've got a seconder, Councillor Vallelonga. Councillor Vallelonga. Yep. You agree with that? All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you.
Could I ask a relevant question, please?
No, I think we'll move on.
It is an important question that's relevant to that. If I could ask a question, please.
Not at this stage. I'll move on and we'll move through the agenda. We'll move through the agenda. You can send through your question. after the meeting, I think that would be appropriate.
Well, we have to have questions without notice as part of a standard special council
Yeah,
meeting agenda.
yeah. I'll just look at my, well, we don't have questions without notice on our list here.
We should do, because the agenda is not following the standard format, and you can't.
Well,
you
it's
can't
not on
mess
my
with-
agenda. It's not on my agenda.
Oh, good. It's on your agenda?
No, it's not.
No,
It's
it
not
should-
here.
It should be.
It's not
Because
here.
by regulation, questions without notice and motions without notice are allowed on a special council meeting. Motions on notice are not allowed, and that has been validated by the document presented by Kate Symes.
Well, as I said, this is an agenda item that was declared when I called this council meeting. So it is valid that the motion on notice, yes, it is, because it was included in the agenda. And when you requested a special meeting, you have to include an agenda, and that was included in the agenda. So it is valid.
But I said,
So
it's for the, when I submitted it,
I'm actually not
I
going to
submitted
continue
for
to
the
argue with
24th
you.
of November.
I'm not going to continue to have
I
this
submitted
debate.
for the 24th of November. Why don't you both follow the rules?
No,
It's a simple rule.
We have been following the rules. In
Twen-
fact, we've been following them to the letter.
This is the
so-
administration.
I beg your pardon?
This is the administration. You changed the rules.
So, Councillor Tooley, I will allow your question, but I won't allow statement. So please ask your question and
Thank
please
you.
be direct.
Thank you very much. Mayor, when I submitted my motion on notice for the 24th of November, I submitted a document. Why has the document not been listed in the attachments? It's impossible for members to read it if it's not included. Why did CEO now not put the document in? You can't discuss it if
You can
haven't seen
table it on the night and motions on notice. You do not provide background. That is not included. That's standard practice, isn't it, CEO? CEO?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It should be a part of the attachments.
No,
so people can
you don't have
pre-read it.
attachments for motion. You have a motion on notice and you can table your document right now if you wish, but you don't wish to, that's fine. You wish to, and it's going to be deferred to the December meeting, no problem. But we don't provide background information to motions on notice. Is that not correct, CEO?
I must admit, it depends on the nature of the motion as presented, but the first part of the question, I think, from Councillor Tooley was, and if I recall, that the correspondence that we received from you was that the motion be presented to a council meeting in November. I don't recall that you were specific that it be on the 24th as distinct from the 23rd.
To you as an attachment so that it could be included as the common courtesy that everyone can read it and consider it before the meeting. It's just bog standard practice, Madam.
Okay, I'm going to leave that with the administration because I don't have anything to do with what's provided with motions on notice. However, I think I've answered around special council meetings and agendas, and I think we'll move on. Thank you for your question, Councillor Tooley. Now we will move on to confidential reports. Okay. So we have now, okay, so we have the final report, complaint by, just get this right. Final report, complaint by Councillor Tooley on page 18. And we have a recommendation to discuss this matter in confidence. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Shanks? I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, then I'll take your question. Do I have a mover and a seconder to go into confidence? Councillor Fraser, are you happy to move that way? Councillor Davies, you happy to second? Do you wish to speak at all, Councillor Fraser? Councillor Davies. Any discussion? I might make a quick comment that I think that this is a good move to move into confidence. It does refer to personal affairs and also provided, information that's been provided by or to a minister of the Crown or another public authority. I think that's actually quite important, and it is important that we make that clear before we go into confidence. Now, we have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Shanks, you have a question?
Just some clarification, if I could, there. We've had 2 prior complaints, and this one's in confidence. Can you simply explain why this one is different?
I didn't do the agenda. I'll put that to the
Through the chair.
CEO. Thank you.
The complaint as presented by Councillor Tooley was to the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman has instructed that the matter be presented to Council but on a confidential basis.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Tooley and then Councillor Samble.
I'm sorry to call the CEO, but that is factually not correct. Both of the letters concerned, CEO Annette wrote to the Ombudsman, and I've been privy to these since the 18th of August, and it's taken 9 weeks, and the Ombudsman said, Councillor CEO Annette, you may release these 2 letters from confidence.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the CEO again, if you could just repeat that instruction from the Ombudsman, and then we'll go to Councillor Samble.
Again, this matter is distinct from the others in that this involves the Ombudsman's office. It's the Ombudsman's office who have provided direction to me in terms of how to deal with the matter. It's the Ombudsman who's asked me to present this to Council for Council to consider. It's the Ombudsman who's made that directive. There's been time spent between the corresponding dates in terms of seeking clarification between myself and the Ombudsman's office, and if those of you who dealt with the Ombudsman's office knows that these things take time, but I'm presenting this information in this manner as a complete and clear instruction by the Ombudsman.
Thank you. Councillor Samble?
Because of we have a confidential area a little bit later on, is it at all possible to move this item to the confidential reports? We have the media, we have people in the gallery, and we're on Zoom. And
Yes.
I mean, you know, that would mean if we went into
We are going, this is recommending we go into confidence. That's what we're doing right now, Brian. Once we vote on this, we will be in confidence. Just to clarify
I'll certainly
that.
vote against it because
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? You've already spoken. Okay. You wish to speak? Okay. Do you wish to just declare a conflict at all, given this is about you?
Yeah, I have. Yes.
You haven't declared a conflict at this stage.
I will declare a perceived conflict. I will remain in the chamber.
Do you wish to speak to the
I do,
item?
yeah. Mayor, I believe that Councillor Shanks is quite correct, and I have no problem with this being an open camera. And I'll read to you why it's open. It says here, in accordance with section 50, this is the letter to the CEO, you have a copy of it, of the Independent Commissioner Against Corruption. I authorise you to disclose to the elected members of the Town of Gawler Mr. Lambert's
Okay,
letter.
I'm going to stop you there because this is potentially confidential. Given what the CEO is, I'm going to stop you there because I believe that you could be potentially breaching confidentiality. So just, I caution you, Councillor Tooley, I don't wish you to breach confidentiality.
Okay.
So if you can stay away from that, please. Thank you.
I received a letter from the Ombudsman on this matter saying that this matter can be disclosed at your discretion. I believe the CEO has the same matter. I do not believe there is any confidentiality over this. And I personally, because it's about me, I have no problem with the public being aware, listening to the debate and seeing this material.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. Councillor Fraser, you're happy for me to put that motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. We are now in confidence for, so anybody who shouldn't be in the room, if I can ask you to leave, and then we'll bring you back in when we deal with the next item